China is absolutely willing to go, yeah, the first 500 boats we send across the Strait of Taiwan are getting blown up. Welcome back to Bullets and Brass, folks. Today we are talking about the issues with a conflict with China, politically, economically, and militarily. Because I saw an interesting article talking about the imbalance in terms of weapons production, ammo supply, how many missiles we have. The CEO, JP Morgan, was talking about this where, and I'm not a fan of his, really don't like him. I think he made a bad analogy with Bitcoin and things like that. But he had a good point in that China can outproduce us, even at our current supply. Not future production, just current supply. It's marginal. If you have a serious conflict with China, they have a lot of assets. They can soak up a lot of damage and then carry through. And philosophically, they're okay with that. As a government, as a military, China is absolutely willing to go, yeah, the first 500 boats we send across the Strait of Taiwan are getting blown up. But you used up 1,000, 1,500 of your top missiles, top cruise missiles, top anti-ship missiles to do it. And now you've got your second-rate missiles or your 3-month wait to resupply while we shoot at your ships that are trying to do the resupply. And our best ships are now coming across. Take this a step further. China produces way more ships, mostly commercial, not military, but mostly commercial. But their production capacity for shipping, for aircraft, for missiles, for all these supplies, vastly higher than the US. Ours tend to be more sophisticated, more capable on an individual basis, but that doesn't change the math if you look at this as a extended conflict. And I don't think it would be an extended conflict in the sense that, hey, we're going to go to war with China and that war is going to last 3 years. No, I think it's going to be 2, 3 2-week conflicts. I think that a strategy China might use is we start the fight. We use up a lot of your munitions. We don't do anything irreversible. We don't do anything that really, lights a fire under the U.S. to just hammer China. But they pretend they're trying to invade Taiwan. They send ships. We burn up a lot of missiles. Taiwan burns up a lot of missiles. We expend a lot of consumables. We lose a few ships. Taiwan loses a few ships. We lose some planes. Right? It's an actual war. I'm not saying there's not an actual fight. But they're not attacking U.S. cities. They didn't use their hacking of our infrastructure to any great effect. Just use up consumables. Use up some ships. Damage a lot of things. And then wait. Wait 3 years. They will have replaced everything they lost. We won't even have started. We will have maybe done a study about whether we want to replace it. And yet they're back up to full capacity. And they started a little border conflict, another little something. We use up more of our capacity, whether it's directly or we're sending it to Taiwan or we're sending it to somebody else. They hassle the Philippines and we send some supplies to the Philippines. Now we're even lower than we were, right? We're back below the level we were at after the first conflict. And, a year later, China's back up above where they were to start with. Great. And then maybe they decide now's the time. You're now into a president who's distracted with something else. And they go full on. Swarms of ships, drones, fighters, bombers, the whole works, along with the economic attack on the U.S., the hacking, the banking, the whole deal, along with local sabotage. Because if you don't think China has people here in the U.S. with that ability, you're blind. You're not paying attention. I don't think that's odd. I think we should be aware of it. We should be taking precautions as a country. But yeah, I assume we have also done the same in places. I assume most countries with a known potential, opponent do at least something to that effect. I mean, that's kind of the purpose of our CIA, right? But are we prepared to deal with those consequences after a multi-stage conflict where they have drawn us down, and then the actual serious fight occurs? And the answer, I think, is no. I think we have gotten so in love with this bloodless is not the right term. That is an insult to all the people who did bleed over the last 20 years. But comparatively, on a conflict by conflict basis, the U.S. bleeds less than most of the peers we fight with, that we're shooting back and forth with. We focus on technology. We focus on asset protection. Can I drop a bomb on it instead of a soldier, right? We will trade an entire aircraft full of munitions to protect one soldier in a heartbeat. Like multiple aircraft, right? We will trade multiple aircraft worth of munitions, millions and millions of dollars, to protect one soldier. Russia and China would probably drop the first bomb on that soldier. It'd be like, problem solved. Different mentality. So we would look at it and go, of course they wouldn't do a spoiling war to draw us down. They're going to lose so many men and equipment. They don't care. Doesn't resonate the same way. Different priorities, different thought process, different cultural baggage, right? And I think that's something we need to be more aware of as a nation, because we have developed this anti-military industrial complex mentality as a nation, because it is inarguably corrupt, money hungry, feeding corrupt politicians, and just generally not being efficient. But that doesn't mean that we don't need those military suppliers, and we don't need to put money into actually producing and maintaining that equipment and purchasing enough of it. We used to have a policy of 2.5 wars. We could fight a war in the Pacific, a war in the Atlantic, Europe, 2 major wars, plus some little thing somewhere else. And that was always polite fiction, but certainly we could handle logistically 1 major war and some other conflicts. And we can no longer do that. The infrastructure to do that is very quickly going away. Not because we don't have the troops, not because we don't have the transport power necessarily, but because we don't have the ammo. We don't have the overflow of missiles. More missiles have been used in the last year dealing with pirates, Houthi pirates, than we produced. No joke. The anti-air, like the surface-to-air missiles being used to defend ships, we have used more of them than we produced by a significant number. We then gave a bunch to Israel to protect Israel. I don't know if we gave, but they have them. They use them, right? They're gone. Whatever we got paid for them is irrelevant. The supply is reduced. That creates a problem, because do that a couple more times and China goes, oh, okay, we just have to run your ships out of missiles and you can't even reload. Your beautiful destroyers, your beautiful missile cruisers, missile frigates, they're very scary, but we have more ships than you have missiles. And if we shoot down 1/3 of your missiles, we have a lot more ships than you have missiles. What you going to do now, right? So this creates a problem. We don't seem to be addressing it well. We don't seem to be correcting that supply situation. And I think that's the real problem, because China is not going to approach this at a one gigantic fight kind of way. I think China's already approaching this. I think that there are probably links to these organizations that are slowly using up our supply of munitions. Now, we're not talking about bullets, like AR-15 ammo. We're not talking about that. We're not even talking about, to a real extent, artillery ammunition, dumb bombs, even some smart bombs. But we're talking about these standoff weapons to deal with a large number of ships, a large number of aircraft, to deal with incoming missiles. These are expensive, precision pieces of equipment that take time to produce. The assembly lines to produce them are large and expensive. In some cases, the assembly lines are dependent on parts from China, or Taiwan. The factories are there for certain chips, certain assemblies. Right after the first war, do you think China's going to leave that supply line open? Rare earth elements were a particular thing that J.P. Morgan CEO, it's Jamie Dimon. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I think the guy's an asshole, but he's not wrong. He's not wrong, guys. China's our number one supplier of rare earth elements, if I remember correctly. If we don't have that supply, a whole lot of fancy stuff is hard to produce. We have our own supply. It's tiny in comparison. We import a vast percentage. You can't be that dependent on a supply that can be cut off for something that critical unless you have a big enough stockpile. And we don't have a big enough stockpile, is my understanding. I could be wrong. Do we have a 10-year stockpile? If you know, let me know. Does the U.S. government, U.S. military-industrial complex, have a 10-year supply at maximum production, right? At wartime production of those critical items that we import? Because if we do, I'm an idiot. I might be an idiot anyway, but I don't think I am in this regard, at least. That's my concept. That's my theory. I think that we need to be aware of that as a potential, a potential scenario. Because even if it wasn't their original intent, China might do stage one. Didn't work. They didn't capture Taiwan. And goes, okay, we rebuilt. Oh, hey, the U.S. didn't rebuild. They're still sucking wind over there. Okay, we're in better shape relative to them than we were last time. We had a 50-50 chance last time. Let's do it again. Oh, shit. We almost made it. A couple years later, wow, we're in really good shape compared to them now. That our math on that, we had a 65%, 70% chance last time. We were wrong, but hey, now our odds have to be even better, right? China can afford to do this. They don't mind throwing the people away. Their economy is pretty fucked as it is, but that's not going to matter. That's what I got. Just an interesting concept. I saw an article last night, and this is what occurred to me. And I hadn't seen this discussed other places. I'm sure it has. I just have not seen it. I'm very confident that this is not an original thought to me. Anybody who's confused about that, I'm not saying that I'm the first person to come up with this. I just haven't seen it get talked about at the public consumer level, I guess. I'm sure, in more high-level discussions, this comes up, because this is not a new strategy. Certainly, anytime this is guerrilla warfare at a large scale, right? So anyway, take care, have fun, stay safe, everybody. I apologize for not having more videos out lately. People aren't watching. I'm not motivated to keep grinding away at it. But occasionally there's a topic I think is worth talking about. So anyway, I will talk to you later.